In this session, we're going to take a short look at the management of petty cash. So we'll look at the types of factors that businesses consider when deciding how much petty cash to hold, as well as something called the imprest system. So we'll start off by thinking about how much petty cash should be held by a business. Well, it's going to depend on a number of factors, such as how that petty cash is going to be topped up with cash from the bank and how often it's going to be topped up. We'd also take into account the typical level of petty cash expenditure. So for instance, if a business typically spends a couple of £100 in petty cash over a month, holding just £10 is not going to be particularly sensible, because you're constantly going to have to be going back to the bank and drawing out some more petty cash. We take into account the risk of losses from petty cash. So if the risk was high, then we'd want to minimize any potential losses by keeping the level of petty cash low. And we'd also consider the opportunity cost of holding unused petty cash. So we'd consider whether or not it would be better to use the bit of petty cash that doesn't get used very often. That might be better in the bank. The purpose of all this is to try and have as low a petty cash balance as we can without having to be going back to the bank constantly to top it up. Now, one method of managing petty cash is known as the imprest system. And this works as follows. We decide upon an imprest amount. Now, this is the amount of petty cash that we're going to hold at the start of a period. So, for instance, at the start of a month. We'll then draw out cash from our bank to take our petty cash balance up to that imprest amount. We'll then make petty cash payments as normal throughout, say, that month, and at the end of the month, or when our petty cash has actually run out, we'll draw enough cash out from the bank to return us to that imprest amount. So let's have a look at an illustration. So we've got Very Petty Limited that uses an imprest amount of £100. Now, over the past month, it had spent petty cash totaling £76.89. So it's then going to hold £23.11 in petty cash in its petty cash box. So it's going to draw out £76.89 from the bank, and that will return its petty cash balance to that imprest amount of £100. So what's so good about the imprest system? Well, it's this, that at any given time, the amount of petty cash plus the petty cash that's held, plus the value recorded in that period's petty cash vouchers should add up to the imprest amount. And this is useful because it provides us with a quick check to make sure that the petty cash is not being lost and that the amounts being paid out are not being misrecorded. So it's a quick, easy way of managing your petty cash.